Dr. Krishnamurthy says, Manava, I was wrong. God save me. It's not. SCP-3000 strikes and quickly consumes Krishnamurthy. 3000 disappears into the darkness and is no longer visible on exterior cameras. Hello everybody, I'm the Rubber. Today we bring you a SCP Foundation Thayumel class object, SCP-3000. SCP-3000, also known as a Anatasesha, is a massive, aquatic, serpentine entity strongly resembling a giant moray eel. Its size is impossible to determine, but it is estimated to be roughly between 600 to 900 kilometers in length. Its head measures roughly 2.5 meters in diameter, and sections of the body proper are as large as 10 meters in diameter. 3000 is carnivorous and typically a sedentary creature, only moving its head in response to certain stimuli or during feeding. Despite its sedentary nature, 3000 is capable of moving quickly to dispatch prey. However, it doesn't actually need nutrients to maintain its biological function, though its size is huge. It is unknown exactly what happened to the prey it consumes, but during feeding, 3000 excretes through its skin, a thin layer of a viscous, dark gray substance classified as Y909. The Y909 compound is a critical component in several modern and experimental amnestic compounds. SCP-3000 is a Class 8 cognitohazardous entity. Direct observation of 3000 may cause several mental alterations. The observer will experience inexplicable head pain, paranoia, general fear and panic, and memory loss or alteration. According to a log from Site-151's historical records, written by Dr. Eugene Getz, during the initial discovery of SCP-3000, an unease was felt throughout the entire crew. A biologist of the Foundation named William felt the most ill. He began sweating profusely and acted more and more erratically, at one point expressing uncertainty as to the task he was assigned to handle. When the crew finally came into contact with 3000, William began whimpering and had to be sedated. He muttered the word "no" over and over again, as if in disbelief. He went silent after a while as the crew approached 3000's head. Something had gone from William's eyes. Moments after they observed the head of SCP-3000, several other crew members complained of feeling hazy and of being uncertain what they were supposed to be doing. Captain Ritter wrote it off as nitrogen intoxication and forced them to continue approaching 3000. When the crews were 50 meters away from 3000, it turned slowly to look at them. At that moment, William began screaming and flailing, shouting about how he could see it in his head. Other Foundation personnel tried to restrain him, but he got free and smashed his face against one of the portholes. He hit it so hard he cracked the inner layer of glass. The damage was bad enough that the crew had to surface and try to give William medical attention, but he was too far gone at that point. Despite the trauma, he still spoke briefly as he lay dying. He said, "There's nothing, nothing, nothing." By the time they had reached the surface several hours later, William was dead. In the log, Dr. Eugene Getz wrote that even now, he can still see the eyes of SCP-3000. Despite this incident, a diving expedition was ordered to personally assess the creature and investigate the source of the thick, gray fluid that had been observed floating around its head. The dive team was composed of 3 members of Mobile Task Forces, Kingfishers. All divers were equipped with high-pressure suits as well as front-facing headlamps. The water was dark and cold. They were in position about 500 meters from the head of SCP-3000. Moments after being in the water, the team leader told the command station that they seemed to have some confusion over their call sign, and they were not sure where they were going. They felt an awful headache, like something's needling in their brain. Regardless, command told the team to continue towards 3000, but all the divers were completely confused about where they were. As they continued approaching, one of the divers began to utter ominous phrases concerning oblivion and dark eyes. Just at that moment, command detected 3000 moving rapidly towards the divers, and their radios went silent. After 33 seconds of silence, one of the divers finally answered to the radio. According to the log, the leader of the team said 3000 opened its mouth, and suddenly there was the sound of a struggle through the other 2 radios. Only one of them remains. The other 2 have been eaten by 3000. The one remained not being eaten claimed that it's extremely difficult to form thoughts while near 3000. He said that the fluid was seeping through the skin around its head, about a meter back. Just looking at the stuff is making him feel like the room is spinning. He feels nauseous and his head isn't working right. He went to retrieve a sample and attached it to one of those little balloons and let it float up so Command will be able to get it later. After that, he claimed that he knows he is dying and told the command station not to send anyone else out there. It is so dark. Command continued to attempt to communicate with 09 Bravo, but Bravo grew increasingly unintelligible before eventually going completely silent. Bravo's radio stayed active over the next 3 days, and intermittent breathing could be heard until the radio ceased functioning. In the beginning, we have mentioned that SCP-3000 is a Thaumiel-class entity. Thaumiel-class SCPs are anomalies that the Foundation specifically uses to contain other SCPs. Even the mere existence of the Thaumiel-class objects is classified at the highest level of the Foundation, and their locations, functions, and current status are known to few Foundation personnel outside of the O5 Council. So, how can a giant moray eel that messes up your head helps the SCP Foundation in their operations? The answer is in the dark gray substance classified as Y909. SCP Foundation uses a large number of amnestic during their work. It is vital for keeping the secrecy of the Foundation. The inclusion of the Y909 compound has shown a marked increase in the stability and long-term effectiveness of the Foundation's amnestics. Overall, amnestics utilizing Y909 break down 78% slower than their standard counterparts in cold storage, and 52% slower than their standard counterparts at room temperature. Additionally, individuals administered an amnestic regimen utilizing Y909 show a marked increase in suggestibility, memory clearance, and a significant decrease in additional side effects. Individuals treated with these amnestics express significantly fewer intrusive memories as those without Y909, with some individuals exposed to experimental compounds expressing no intrusive memories whatsoever, even at the 5 and 10-year marks. Due to the effectiveness of these treatments with the addition of Y909, the continued inclusion of the compound is essential to modern Foundation amnestic application. The SCP Foundation has completely relied on the Y909 compound with no means to synthetically reproduce it. Hence, the ATZAC protocol has been developed. This protocol dictates the way the Y909 compound is collected off of SCP-3000 and the way personnel are to interact with 3000. According to the brief framework of the procedure documented, one individual D-class subject is to be administered a sedative and equipped with a high-pressure diving suit. The subject is then to be tethered to a remotely operated underwater vehicle, ROV, within the aft airlock. The airlock is to be flooded, and the subject is to be towed by the ROV towards the feeding site. Upon reaching the feeding site, the ROV is to disconnect its tether, leave the subject there, and return to the Foundation submarine, named SCPF Aramida. Throughout this stage, SCPF Aramida should monitor SCP-3000's position and adjust course if the entity begins to move away from the feeding site. Mission Command will provide additional instructions during this phase if necessary. During the feeding session, no personnel are permitted to leave the Aramida without authorization from the Mission Command. At a point after the total consumption of prey, SCP-3000 will begin to excrete Y909 near the foremost section of its body. Specialized teams of deep-sea divers are to exit the SCPF Aramida through the aft airlock and approach SCP-3000. Collection of Y909 must take place during SCP-3000's digestive period, which is currently believed to be roughly 2.5 hours after consumption of prey. Teams must return to launch craft before the end of this period. During this period, the typical effects of SCP-3000 are less severe, though Command should continue to monitor these teams for damage to their cognition. After the collection of Y909, personnel are to transfer the collected substance to secure containers before returning to the surface. The mission administrator on board the Aramida is to monitor the substance throughout transport. The following report concerns 2 doctors. The Foundation's Level 3 researcher, Dr. Krish Namurthy, and a staff clinical psychologist, Dr. Manava. Dr. Manava was assigned to interview Dr. Krishnamurthy after he attempted to exit out the Aramida's aft airlock without diving equipment. Dr. Krishnamurthy begins discussing how he feels disconnected from his mind and tired from trying to keep it together. He's forgetting things, having other people's dreams, and faces he doesn't recognize, places he has never been. Clearly, his proximity to 3000 is greatly affecting him. At this point, Dr. Krishnamurthy couldn't remember his mother's voice, but he recalls that she told him about a god called Anatasesha. the king of serpents that lies beneath the god Vishnu in the cosmos. When the light of the universe had gone out, all that would be left is anesthesia. Dr. Krishnamurti believes that SCP-3000 is anesthesia. He says in the interview with Dr. Manava, I believe that SCP-3000 is anesthesia. I believe that this aberration, this treachery against cognition, is the result of us being in the presence of a god. Not just a god, but a god who exists across all time, all at once, and even beyond. Maybe some part of the nothingness beyond the edge of time is part of anesthesia as well. After 2 days of containment, orders were received to lift the hold order on Dr. Krishnamurti in accordance to the terms of the ATSAC protocol. 3 hours after Dr. Krishnamurti was released from his holding cell, the following incident took place. Dr. Krishnamurti stands near the entrance to the Aramita's aft airlock while weeping and prepares to open the airlock door. Interior airlock camera captures Dr. Krishnamurti staring at the exterior airlock door for a full 2 minutes, not moving an inch. After 2 minutes, he collapses on the ground. As 3000 slowly approaches the submarine, Dr. Krishnamurti puts on a high-pressure deep-sea diving suit and then moves towards exterior door controls and then exits the Aramita's aft airlock. SCP-3000 slowly appears out of the darkness, reaches Dr. Krishnamurti, and its mouth begins to open. Aramita sounds horns, but neither SCP-3000 nor subject appear to notice. 3000 moves to just above Dr. Krishnamurti. He appears to look up into the now fully expanded jaw of 3000. Dr. Krishnamurti says, "Manava, I was wrong. God save me. It's not." SCP-3000 strikes and quickly consumes Krishnamurti. 3000 disappears into the darkness and is no longer visible on exterior cameras. Rescue crews are recalled. The crew begins to initiate ATSAC protocol.